Hi, it's Elizabeth Richard with Elizabeth Richard Realty. We want to talk about contracts. It's very important to make sure that the contract is correct. There are some major things on the contract that can cause the contract to be voidable. So you could think you have a binding contract and you may not. And for example, you as a seller can have a contract with a buyer, and you could probably have an opportunity to get out the contract and or the buyer. Now, if you are a seller trying to sell your house, you do want to make sure that the buyer can't just terminate. You want to be in a situation where if they did have an earnest money, that you are able to keep up with that date and making sure that the contract is valid. I have an example of where, say, for example, you both had a contract, you all signed, everybody signed. If the legal description's not on there, that contract can actually be voidable. So you want to make sure that everything is correct on the contract. Now, as a seller, you don't want to take a chance of losing a great buyer and the frustrations of the appointments, the scheduling. There's a lot of things that goes on with being responsible as your agent. The best thing for you as a seller is to just sit back, relax, allow the agent to handle everything and just show up at closing. And between time, of course, we'll be communicating because they may be signatures or amendments that comes up in the process. My thing is having to deal with the contract and not understanding the contract. And what kind of contract would you be using? Is it a homemade contract? Because we have contracts as agents where it's already pre-typed from an attorney, so it already protects you. However, even with those protections, you do want to make sure that you signed every area that is supposed to be signed. But not only that, the biggest thing is making sure that the legal description on that contract is on there, because that can cause an issue where the contract is not valid. You would assume that it's valid, but it's not. And also, too, meeting the deadlines on the contract. You have to try to make sure that you meet the deadlines on these contracts, because if you don't, that can also cause an issue. And it can also benefit you by making sure that you are paying close attention to these deadlines on the contract. And you don't want to get too busy with work and you forget that the earnest money was due in 3 days. The financing contingency had just ended. The appraisal contingency had just ended. And you didn't make sure that you follow the next steps. And then even making sure that you follow up with the lender and see what is going on. Because sometimes if you're not making sure that you're on top of everything with the contract, the deal can likely fall through because there is lack of communication. The biggest thing is the contract, but as while you're in contract, there's so many different people involved in it. That's why you have your agent as your quarterback, who's going to make sure that you get that touchdown, and the touchdown is closing. And when I say there's a lot of people involved, from the home inspector, the appraiser is involved, the lender, you got the underwriter, you got the processor, you got the other buyer's agent, you got the buyer, and I may be leaving someone out that is part of the contract. But to be honest, me as a seller should or would definitely hire an agent to help me through with the contract. Even me as an agent selling my home should have another person to sell my home as a mediator. That can save time, money, and headache. Now, if this message resonates with you, like, subscribe, follow my page. If you want more information on anything particularly, you can